to talk about artsy
Art
stuff.
stuff. Yeah, art
Anything,
stuff.
Anywhere we want to go, who knows what's going to come up?
It's hard to say.
Hard to say. If you had to introduce yourself to a total stranger as far as what you do for a living,
Yes.
/ who you are, how do you answer that question?
Well, I think first I'm an artist, and I went to Ball State and got a degree in drawing. My parents were so thrilled that I had a degree in drawing because I could already do that.
Is that sarcasm or is that not?
It's kind of sarcasm. My plan was to get a master's degree and then teach college level art.
Okay.
But that didn't quite work out. So, well, I moved back here for a while and worked for the Palladium Item.
In what capacity?
I was
aware of that.
I was a paste up artist, and my big job was to paste up grocery ads, which was exciting.
That's never even a
That's
job I even knew existed.
And it no longer exists because there was no.
Because any dope with a computer can put together an image now?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, so I was kind of looking to become a graphic artist.
Mm-hmm.
But these, like paste up and things like that, those are the things that you end up doing while you're trying to get that kind of position.
As you're on the journey towards
on the
another
journey,
thing.
Yes, because I was having to live with my parents, and
You mean post-college?
Post-college, I sold what I could, and I moved to Indy without a job. So the next thing was getting a job.
Uh-huh.
So I found a job as a typesetter. And I went to the interview. I had no idea how to typeset, and I lied all the way through the interview and got the job.
Wow.
And then I was thrown into a cold room, which is where computers used to live, because you could never get them warm. They would get heat up a lot.
Right.
And they gave me a 500-page manual, and I taught myself how to typeset. And it was a nightmare. Eventually, though, I ended up at Conseco when it first started. And it was a great place to work at that time.
But when you say typesetter, what is that? How would you define that?
Well, there was a keyboard, and you were coding very much like HTML in order to get font size, paragraph size, leading, indents, bullets, whatever you needed was kind of an HTML deal. So everything was coded. And you would type all that in, and then it would go to a machine where film was exposed. And then you would take that film out and run it through a developer, and big long galleys of type would come out. And then the person who was the graphic artist or paste up artist would have to cut all that apart along with artwork and paste it on paper. And it was a huge process back then. And I was a typesetter at Conseco when I started. But that's when the big turning point of my life came.
Okay.
When that Macintosh came out.
Okay.
And we had our first computer, and we were all like ooh and ahhing over it.
Right.
And so that's when I kind of made that switch from just a typesetter to graphic artist. I lasted at Conseco for about 6 years. I got mad and quit. And
I've been there.
Nothing. I just bought a house, my first house.
So what, you bought the house and then you quit?
Yeah.
That's how life works.
That's kind of how I do things. And so I just started my own business at that point. I'd already had a computer.
While still in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it was in Carmel, actually.
Okay.
So that was kind of the journey there. I've had that graphic design business the whole time since then. And then I've always wanted, though, to get back to fine art, which I've been kind of combining graphic design and fine art because most of my illustration work is digital.
Right.
So I use Illustrator. So that's a long story to get to. I'm a digital graphic artist illustrator. kind of the more traditional stuff. I've tried different things. I like to have a lot of things going on, as anyone who is probably my friend already knows that I have a lot of stuff going on. So I've tried different things, but it's mostly drawing and painting. I feel like I've expanded my painting skills by working at RCT, working on sets and stuff.
Right.
To kind of large format things.
Now, is that something, as far as, have you designed any of the sets yet? Or have you brought other people's design to life? Or both?
Well, both. I mean, my first show I helped design was The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Which looked fantastic.
That was a pretty crazy set. That was a lot of work, a lot of flat painting more than built sets. That was kind of a concept that we had. And then I stumbled onto designing for Music Man. I did not know how to plan out placement for built items. I mean, I learned a lot, but again,
the process under a deadline.
Yes, and was not
trying
really,
something new under a
completely
deadline
blind.
when you're responsible to other people. That is a horrible place to be.
That's right. The builders just loved me. I feel for them because I really didn't know what I was doing. So I got some help and learned how to plan for different things. And the very next show I did completely by myself was Addams Family.
Which again looked great.
Which I love doing. I mean, my life is Addams Family. So when we see some of the things in my house, you'll see that my house pretty much looks like the Addams Family set on a much smaller scale. So anyway, I feel like that's expanded my skills somewhat, but it's bringing the basics into different applications, I suppose.
What's the biggest leap you've ever made for yourself, artistically speaking, as far as something that you've either wanted to give a try or that I think I'd be good at such and such? Do you have one of those kind of things that's to look back on as either as a success or a failure? Because I tend to shy away from stuff I think I'm not good at.
I think that what drives me is a fear of failure most of the time. I know that sounds crazy, but that really drives me. I guess if I don't, oh God, that's hard to explain. I have a big fear of failure, but I want to try everything.
So you would rather try something than
not.
So your desire to try and learn something new is seeming to be at least 51 to 49% greater than the I'm maybe going to fail.
In other words, if I have a big project, like, for instance, Addams Family was probably my biggest project overall to date. I was terrified of it, but I want to jump right in. So I tend to not plan always. Even with artwork, if I take up a painting, I don't really think, oh, I'm going to plan this out to the nth degree. I jump in and then figure it out from there.
Okay.
That's not always served me in life, but...
You mean outside of art?
Yes, but that's kind of my personality, I suppose.
Do you think that's maybe a common thread among creative types?
It might be.
I think it might be, because I think a lot of creative types have, especially when it comes to creating, because there's such a personal connection from the creator to what the creation becomes.
Yes.
That it's because you know when you're happy with your work, you know when you feel you've done a good job, or you know when you feel you've put in a lot of hard work, and so then it's such a personal connection to that work that when someone has a less than favorable thing to say, it hurts. It's tough.
No, it really hurts. That is so true. I think you were getting at something really important there with this, how it's personal to you. Because whenever you do art, you're putting yourself there. I mean, that's me on there.
Mhm.
I mean, it may not be it's not a portrait of me or anything, but really it kind of is. It's like an inner portrait of you whenever you create something.
It's probably a better portrait of yourself than an actual photograph of yourself, because you are pulling, everyone can see what's on the outside.
That's exactly
so the
right.
thing that you get when you create something, whether it's a painting, a drawing,
Yes.
a musical performance, or a vocal performance, whatever that artistic endeavor might be, that is something that is coming from within you, and it is, when there's crickets as response, it is harsh.
Yes, it is. That's funny that you. Well, I've even said that to you, that's a huge risk. Then every time you create something, every time you try something, because you're not only exposing a little piece of yourself, but you're giving other people kind of entree to criticize.
Yeah.
But if that would never stop, that wouldn't stop you from doing it, and wouldn't stop me from doing it either. You're more hesitant about your artwork, even though I think you have a talent for it.
I hesitate. This is actually something we were just, and this is where the conversation is going to get maybe really way more personal than anyone expected it
or
to.
wants to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Amy and I were having a conversation last night about, just in general, about the outline points of who I am when it comes to reactions to failure, when it comes to reactions to other people, in whatever walk of life these failures or successes may come. So I have found I tend to just stay back out of the way. I can maybe do a couple of things good, or I think I can do a few things well, and then why bring the potential for grief and sadness
and suffering?
What do you hope to achieve when you create something new?
I want to be sure that I'm true to my style. When someone approaches you with a job or a commission, you're hoping that they came to you because of something they saw in your style that speaks to them.
Right.
But I always feel like I'm sort of creating for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a commission, I would hope it's every artist's dream to have a signature style.
Okay.
And that takes years kind of to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And then it happens all of a sudden. And then people are saying, oh, I know your work. Or I saw that. Didn't you do that?
So
that's a huge compliment to me.
So maybe other people realize the theme, the common thread before you do? Do you think that's happened?
I think that there's a time when those things cross, I think.
And so then all of a sudden, oh, this is who
You're
I
like,
am.
And then you're like, well, yeah, it does kind of look like my
Mhm.
style. And someone said, well, have you ever thought about teaching art? And I'm like, well, I'm not a technique person. I feel like a lot of my art looks like outsider art, like person that has not developed technique or skill in materials.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were saying that how drawing is really just looking and putting together shapes. It's looking, it's observing
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. So if you really learn to look at something, then it's likely most anyone could draw something. Something.
What do you have going on right now? Where do you see the next few years of your artistic life taking you?
Well, you may have heard that I'm working with my best friend from college now. Well, she's still my best friend, Lisa Combs,
Mhm.
who is a very experienced and savvy illustrator, author. And she's been writing children's books, and I've been illustrating them.
Mhm.
And we named our little publishing company appropriately Best Friend Books.
See, I wasn't aware of the connection between you and Lisa that way. That's super cute.
Mm-hmm. We were college roommates and lost touch with each other, and she said she had been trying to find me for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And with the development of Facebook and social media,
Yep.
she finally did, even though both our last names had changed, etc. We just got together, and it's like no time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talking, and she goes, well, been writing, I've had these ideas for children's books, but I've never really found an illustrator. I'm like, I've always wanted to illustrate children's books. This is perfect.
That is perfect.
It's like, you know, your peanut butter's in my chocolate kind of feeling. She's written, I bet, upward towards 30 manuscripts. I've illustrated 11 of them. And we just recently released a curriculum that kind of grew out of the 11 books that we'd already published. It was kind of this natural progression. Lisa has a lot more patience, I feel like, than I do.
Patience for what?
For when we get discovered, or when things start happening,
Okay.
when we can start paying ourselves for the work we've been doing for the past few years.
Right.
So when the first few books came out, and we didn't sell 1 million copies,
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? I mean, I always believed in our projects,
Right.
but it's a lot of hours if you don't
Yeah.
have other stuff. And when other stuff is slow, you always want these things to pick up quicker.
Right.
But everything seems to happen exactly how it's supposed to.
Mhm.
Despite, so one of the lessons from her books is to sort of trust the moment, be in the moment,
Yeah.
trust what's happening. Don't try and force anything, really. I mean, try and strive to be better, but don't try and force things, because this world has a way of making things happen in its right time. It's one of the big lessons from the books.
You are preaching to the choir there when you're talking about the universe having those plans.
The thing about that is disappointments still come. They
Yeah.
come a lot sometimes.
Yep.
And I used to, when those disappointments happen, beat myself up quite a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd feel a huge amount of guilt
Mhm.
and responsibility. And I mean, I still feel responsibility for things. And I think that's okay to have a feeling of ownership sometimes with what happens. But it doesn't defeat me ever. You just have to say, okay, what can I learn from that? That's part of kind of accepting the moment and where you're at right now, and try not to go too far down the road. Because sometimes when you go too far down the road, you don't even take the first step.
Mhm.
Boy, that sounds so philosophical.
Doesn't it?
It does.
How's that? The most important step in any journey is the first one.
I think that's right.
That's like a deep thoughts by
It
Jack
is.
Andy.
That's not really like me at all.
To think that way?
The deep thoughts.
No?
No, I don't think so.
See, I would think that's very much you. Have the Best Friends books taught you anything?
Oh yeah, I think about those books every single day, because there's ways to deal. The first book was How to Tame Your Monkeys, and that's a whole book about how to deal with your thoughts and feelings.
Mhm.
You're not your thoughts and feelings. You have thoughts and feelings, but you can't let them control you all the time.
Okay.
And there's like a list of 14 things in the back of the book on how to control the emotions that sometimes rob us of peace and happiness. And I think of those, 10, 14 things every single day. It's really helped me.
Do the subsequent 10 books kind of support that first one, or does each book continue to lay out?
Well, each one
steps in a
supports the other, absolutely. I mean, the lessons themselves are all built on each other, but we also came up with this thing with the illustrations, is that we have characters that repeat themselves and show up here and there in every single book.
Mhm.
Kind of like a Marvel universe, but not so famous. But was kind of the idea, that we wanted a nice flow there that builds on each single message. And I think we've done a really good job of it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's important to, and I see what you're saying I think I understand what you're saying when you guys are 11 books in,
Mm-hmm.
and there's still that moment of, when is this going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
That's It's kind of scary and awesome and great and terrible all at the same time. You know you've created something good. And you know you've created something. You've created exactly what you set out to do.
That's what I've always wanted to do. So it's my dream job. Throughout your life, you're really lucky if you end up with a small handful of the people who would do anything for you.
Yep.
I've learned to value that a lot. I mean, I have 2 people like that in my life that I don't know where I'd be without their loyalty. So I guess overall things are pretty good.